All right, we'll go ahead and call to order the East Consolidated Zoning Board meeting for this evening. If you can do roll call and then the statement for the hybrid meeting, please.
Sure. Scott Valentine,
Here.
Rod Richardson,
Here.
Ken Klingensmith,
Present.
Fred Weir.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you. This meeting is now being recorded in the board hearing room with zoning board members attending in person. There is also an option for virtual attendance on Zoom webinar. For Zoom attendees wishing to speak, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom app at the start of the agenda item on which you desire to comment. Comments will be received from in-person attendees first, followed by Zoom participants. When it's your turn to speak, the moderator will recognize you by the name or phone number used to join Zoom webinar, and your microphone will be unmuted. Please state your name and the city and state where you reside for the record, followed by your comments. All public speakers will be limited to 3 minutes unless the chair designates a different time period. If you have trouble with Zoom, please call 913-715-9666. Board members, staff, and presenters, please state your name every time you begin talking, and please speak into the microphone so that people attending via Zoom can hear you, and the comments can be transcribed for the record. This is a public meeting. We are presenting live and recording the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We have one agenda item this evening, and then under other business presentation. Any other changes, revisions to the agenda? All right, hearing none. Any conflicts of interest, any external contacts or discussions related to the application?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none. We'll go ahead and approve the September 3rd, 2025 meetings. Going to get a motion to approve those minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval. Fred Wingert, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we'll go ahead and move to the Board of County Commissioners actions.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the zoning board, Sean Pendley, county planning staff. For Board of County Commissioners actions, there was a conditional use permit application for a storage hall, a storage business located at 7225 West 207th Street. If you recall, that was an item that was at the last meeting we had, which is in September for the zoning board. The zoning board did recommend approval of that CP application, and the Board of County Commissioners approved that on October 2nd. That was the only Board of County Commissioners action for this board. I'll continue on with Planning Commission actions. We had a public hearing with the Planning Commission on October 28th for the comprehensive plan updates, including the CARNIP map. If you recall, the comprehensive arterial roadway network plan, we had talked about this. There were some updates that we had to the CARNIP map and some of the roadway types. And following discussion and a public hearing at that meeting on October 28th, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the CARNIP map with changes. They did recommend one change for Edgerton Road. They recommended a change from a type 3 4-lane road to a type 3 2-lane road. And that was a unanimous approval of the zoning board with one abstention. That item was scheduled to be heard for final action at the Board of County Commissioners meeting next Thursday, December 11th. However, staff is recommending to delay that due to other conflicts with agenda items. Next week is a very busy agenda. It's the last meeting of the year. We're going to reschedule that item to the January 29th Board of County Commissioners meeting, and we'll provide an update on the county's website to notify the public of that. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff on board reports?
Nope. None.
All right, before us is application number E25-521FPAU. It's the final plat for 20511 Plum Road. Diane?
Get the graphics going here real quick. Good evening, Diane Wicklund with the County Planning Department. So for this application, the applicant and engineer is at Payne and Brockway. The landowners Timothy and Nova Hanks Living Trust, and the requested action is a revised final plat for Lot 2 of Trinity Place plat. The general location is at the northeast corner of 207th Street and Plum Road. You can see that here on the vicinity map on the screen. The existing land use is residential and the current zoning is the RUR Rural District zoning. Existing improvements on site are a single-family residence and detached accessory structures. And the property size is 10 acres in size. Just to show a couple of graphics here real quick. Here's the aerial view of the subject property, which is outlined in blue. And then this is the aerial view of the surrounding area, and the subject property is outlined in blue. So the original plat for Trinity Place shows natural drainage areas along the north and south property lines for Lot 2, which is the subject of this application. And you can see those natural drainage areas, or I'll also refer to them as NDAs. And so you can see those where the red arrows are pointing to are those NDAs. And those NDAs are for the purpose of surface water drainage, and no buildings are allowed to be constructed in this area. So the owner is proposing to construct a new detached accessory structure on site, which would be located in that natural drainage area as currently platted. Therefore, the owner desires to revise the final plat to remove that NDA designations from the plat in order to construct a new proposed barn in his preferred location. This action requires a revised final plat to be approved by the BOCC and then recorded. So furthermore, since approval of the original Trinity Place plat, the county has revised its storm drainage standards, which replaced those natural drainage areas with stream buffer zones, which have different requirements. And so the proposed plat, this new plat, was modified to remove those natural drainage areas and show that new stream buffer zone for this property. And it is in conformance with the current county standards. And so this next graphic shows the revised final plat. It shows removing those NDAs and then showing the new stream buffer zone. Also, we reviewed the minimum infrastructure requirements for this plat were reviewed and approved as part of the preliminary and final plat for this original Trinity Place plat. This final plat also does meet the minimum infrastructure requirements. So the revised final plat is consistent with that approved preliminary plat because the revised final plat does remove those NDAs shown on the plat and replaces them with the new stream buffer zone requirements in a manner that continues to be compliant with the regulations and compliant with the county storm drainage standards. And this plat revision does not alter the approved lot configuration. You'll also see attached at the back of your staff report is a memo from the Public Works Department. They're also supportive of the revised plat. So therefore, planning staff is recommending approval of the revised final plat, subject to the final, the stipulations shown on page 5 of the report. The reason for recommendation of approval is that this revised final plat is consistent with the approved preliminary plat, and it also complies with the county zoning and subdivision regulations and the county storm drainage standards. With that, I am available for questions, and the applicant is also present here today to answer any questions. And then I also have a recommended motion whenever the board is ready for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, staff?
Not for me.
Anyone? Thank you. Does the applicant wish to say anything or add to Diane's report? No. All right. This is not actually I don't think there's anyone on Zoom. We have no one to speak on it because it's just a flat. All right, discussion among the board. Good.
Well, Rod Richardson, it looks like this particular application meets all the marks, to support approval of it. So I certainly will support approval after conclusion of our discussion.
This is Ken. I think it's pretty straightforward. I actually drove down past that area. This is ideal for the area. Everything down there is RUR anyway, so it seems consistent to me as well. Scott, Brett, any comments?
No, I don't have any comments. I agree. I did not get a chance to drive down and look at it today, but I got no comments.
Scott Valentine, no additional, I did drive by and I agree with everything you guys have said.
Perfect. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Rod Richardson, I move to approve application number E 25-521 FP for a revised final plat to be known as Trinity Place Second Plat, subject to the stipulations recommended by staff and for the reasons set forth in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
Scott Valentine, I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously and we present it to the Board of County Commissioners at which meeting?
Yes, so this will go to the Board of County Commissioner meeting on January 8th at 9:30 a.m. Here in this room at 111 South Cherry Administration Building.
And for a point of clarification, will this just go like on a consent agenda for them? Or will it actually be presented?
Well, this is Diane Wickland. The Board of County Commissioners is moving towards that consent agenda. So we've kind of been doing that for the last, I don't know, 3-4 months with the board. Yes, I would assume that this type of application would go on their consent agenda.
Perfect. Okay, we will move along. I think that's the only application we have before the board. Other business, I know Jay, you were going to do a presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Jay Leipzig, Planning Director. Can you all hear me? All right. Okay, this is our second meeting we've had with this new technology, so I'm still kind of, the microphones are very sensitive and I can't tell sometimes whether they're on or off, but we did want to provide a quick update this evening concerning some information that was shared before the Board of County Commissioners on November 20th. Just a couple of weeks ago before Thanksgiving on a proposed zoning board consolidation. And this is just something that has been discussed off and on, that say the last year or so. Staff has been doing some initial research on that and talking with the legal team as well as the commissioners and looking at the possibility of consolidating the zoning boards. So I have a presentation this evening that kind of highlights some of the changes and some of the initial recommendations, initial thoughts, some background information for you all to see that and help you kind of understand why the consolidation was proposed. So history of zoning board consolidations. Zoning boards were created in 1984. We've had 8 consolidations from 1984 through 2023. So imagine having 8 different township boards at one time. And I think some of you probably were part of those previously. So there's a long history in this room. The most recent consolidation we did was 2023. The Southeast Zoning Board just changed its name to the East Consolidated Zoning Board, but we did combine the Northwest Zoning Board and the Southwest Zoning Board together to create the West Consolidated Zoning Board. So we have two zoning boards, one planning commission. Want to give a quick overview on the statutory membership. This is required according to the state reference, and Commissioner Richardson probably is very familiar with these regulations, but the Planning Commission between 9 members currently, but not more than 12, 9 from the unincorporated area, 1 member from each zoning board is required. And then the Consolidated Zoning Board is 5 members, but not more than 9. Currently, we have 7 members on each of our zoning boards, and we have 12 members on the Planning Commission. So if you look at the map here on the next page, this does provide an aerial view of the acres in each zoning district. The east has about 37,527 acres. The west has about 69,260. So the west consolidated zoning board area is quite a bit bigger than the east, but the east has more population. And then looking, and this is just kind of a graphic to let you see that distribution. Then the unincorporated area, if you look at the total acres, in 2020, 121,734. That has been reduced to 106,887. So almost a reduction of about 15,000 acres. And a good part of that, I believe almost 9,000 acres was part of the Sunflower Army ammunition plant when that was annexed out of the county into the city of DeSoto. Number of parcels from 2020 through 2025 has increased slightly, 163 new parcels. And then the population, as another interesting statistic from 2020 to 2025, has increased by 8 people. So we're losing land area. It's becoming slightly more dense, but then the population is roughly about the same. And what's happening is as the county continues to grow, those areas are being incorporated into the cities. Did I skip a slide? Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, that was hidden. That other slide was hidden, I think, that you're talking about.
This one here.
No. You already.
What am I looking
you
at?
already
This
put it
one?
in.
Okay, I did. Oh, I did. Okay.
That's
All right.
hidden for some reason.
Okay. All right. So then we have, sorry, I'm looking at a little glitch here with the technology. I'm looking at the applications considered by the zoning boards 2023 through 2025. And we originally, when we looked at some of this data, we went way back to 2017 and 2016, but it really wasn't pertinent. Just looking at it just from 2020 and 2023 through the 2025. So if you look at the number of applications has remained relatively consistent between the two. Of course, in 2023, there were 6 for the east and 8 for the west. But that was about a half a year because that's when we did the previous consolidation. But I would say, in 2024, 2025, we're on that same track, about 15 through 20, something like that. It's probably an average, and we would probably have that same number going forward as well. The zoning board meeting summary. The East Consolidated Zoning Board, we've had of course, we have 8 scheduled meetings in 2025. 2 of those were canceled. In 2024, we had 13 scheduled meetings. 4 of those were canceled. And that part of that is just lack of quorum, but most of it's just lack of applications. So it is, we try to not try to group those applications together. So if there's business before the board, we're able to do that efficiently. So you're not just going to a meeting just for the sake of being there. So we do try to have that in place and keep that in mind as we go through the year. So the next on the zoning board summary for the West, we had in 2023, we had 5 meetings, 0 of those were canceled. But then if you look at 2025, we had 7 scheduled meetings. 1 of those was canceled. And I think those, I believe, were through lack of applications. So just quick summary in terms of factors for consolidation. The jurisdiction land area continues to shrink from the unincorporated Johnson County. As I said, we lost about 15,000 acres. The number of applications for the East Zoning Board and the West Zoning Board are generally equal following the consolidation in 2023. And we also anticipate a reduction in applications in the zoning boards due to the updates and regulations. We're in the process of updating those regulations. Part of the goal of that update is to create better efficiency and smoother processes and also do more things administratively if possible. So we're looking at refining those processes so that there won't be as many cases coming forward. We also expect a decline or shrinking pool of potential board members able to serve on the zoning boards in the near future. So looking at potential nominations of what in terms of a proposal of what it might look like for the East Zoning Board and West Zoning Board, would expanding it to 9 members. So currently we have 7 for each. We expand it to 9 members. I have 3 members from the 3rd district, 3 members from the 6th district, and then the chair would appoint 3 members. So evenly distributed, but everyone must be from the unincorporated area. And then the Planning Commission would essentially remain the same, still keeping that at 12 members. Rather than have members from each zoning board, we would have a total of 6 members from the zoning boards. And then the other nominations would remain the same that we have currently. And then the chair having 2 of those nominees as well for the Planning Commission. So that part would really, there would be a change in terms of the, having the 6 members from one zoning board rather than 3 from each of those. But and then as a quick overview in terms of next steps, as I said, this was presented to the Board of County Commissioners at a committee of the whole on November 20th. They asked that we had further discussion and presentation to the zoning boards of the Planning Commission, and then bring something back to them in January of 2026 with the potential idea of going through the consolidation in January. But we wanted to get some feedback from the zoning board, let you all see that, so you're aware that these discussions have been taking place, and that if you do have any questions about it or to give input on this proposal. Like I said, it's something we've done before in the past. But the most recent one was in 2023. But there's been quite a history of these consolidations over a number of years. And that concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jay. Comments, questions?
Rod Richardson, there have been obviously multiple consolidations here and in the fire districts, et cetera. So, I mean, consolidation has been more common than not consolidation. Am I correct on the Planning Commission that there is a statute that precludes the Planning Commission from simply taking over the entire function of the zoning boards and doing comp planning too?
Yes, Commissioner, you are correct. That does make the county, Johnson County, somewhat unique in that many cities have a combined zoning and planning commission. This is in the county. We have a separate body for planning, separate body for the zoning boards, and there's a state statute that restricts that. There's been some discussion in the future of looking at that possibility of getting that amended so that we can have a combined planning and zoning. But you are correct. But I don't know the reference from the legal statute, but I've been told that that is true.
I just obviously that's the one difference that you see between the cities and the county.
Yeah.
I have formed no final opinion of how I think about this, except to note that consolidation is sort of the trend, certainly. The concern that I'm wondering what your staff position is on is that it has been my observation over decades that when controversial matters come before let's say in the cities, a planning commission, or here zoning board, I'm going to say, let's say in the cities, a controversial matter comes before a city, and you have multiple representatives from various parts of the city, but you probably only have a few representatives, let's say on the council or the planning commission, from that particular area. So the people that are concerned about a particular use, let's say an intense commercial use being placed near a residential area that people have the usual concerns about, lighting, noise, et cetera. One of the concerns that often comes up is that, I can get my council person to vote, along with the folks that oppose it, but none of the other folks have any skin in the game, and therefore they're much more likely to not be as attentive to the local voices. In this particular case, as I understand it, there would be 3 representatives from the East Consolidated Zoning Board, right? They would be on the Consolidated Board, is that right, or?
Well, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's correct in terms of what the proposed nominations would be. 3 members would be appointed or nominated by the district commissioner for both the 3rd district and 6th district. Not all 3 would actually be, well, once they're nominated, that's correct. They come from the district nominee. Those members would likely be, they have to be residents of that unincorporated. They would likely be also residents of that particular district area. That's correct.
Okay, so I'm not sure I followed that, but.
So there's 3, so the proposed composition of the makeup of the new board would be 3 nominees would come from the 3rd district, 3 nominees from the 6th district, and the chair would have 3 nominations. They're all, is this, hopefully this is up.
I've seen the slide.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we go to that. So that is correct, that they will be from the area, from that district commissioner boundary. So if you see the, also the map, it helps show that as well. That within that map that Jay showed, that showed an overlay of 2 different boundaries. We're showing one, the east and west zoning board boundaries. Then also the blue boundaries are the district commissioner boundaries. So they would have to be those unincorporated areas from that 3rd district would serve on this board. 3 members would be from the 6th district in the blue area would be on the board.
Okay.
And the 3 others could be either from east or west that the chair would nominate.
Okay, because what I was trying to figure out is the difference that the people that, let's say, we deal with here in the East Consolidated Zoning Board are currently represented, if you will, by the number of folks on this board. So if this were implemented, how many people would be on this? And maybe you answered this, I didn't catch it, but how many people on the current East Zoning Board would end up on this consolidated board?
Well, the short answer to that is, I don't know who would be nominated or be on it, but there'd be 3 members that the 3rd district commissioner would nominate.
Three members from the 3rd district.
From the 3rd district,
Okay.
3 members of the 6th district, and the chair could nominate 3 members from anywhere, as long as they were living in the unincorporated area.
So for a recommendation to go to the commissioners, there would be 3 representatives from the 3rd district, let's say. So if a matter came up in what is now the East Consolidated Board and was presented to this consolidated board, there would be 3 folks from their area, so to speak, and 6 folks not from their area. That's all I'm trying to establish. Just general, I know if that's good or bad, but.
Potentially, except that the chair would have 3 votes, and whether they're, 2 people from the
So he could,
east area or the west.
okay, so
So we just try to divide it up evenly, 3, 3, and 3.
But to your point, Rod, which is the concern I have, is I can end up with 3 from the east, 6 from the west. East will never win on voting if there's an issue, because I would prefer a recommendation go forward that you have 4 from the east, 4 from the west, and give the chair 1, or just kick the chair out of it and let the 4, the east voted, elected Julie. She represents that area. The west, elected Shirley. Shirley should put 5 or 4. It's a larger area, so give her the extra 1. The chair doesn't need to appoint anyone, because in the east, we elected Julie, west elected Shirley. And that way, when you sit down, we'll have 4 in the east. I only need 1 other person if it's a hot topic that you might have a concern about.
Oh.
Otherwise, we'll end up in the, put everyone potentially being in the west or everyone potentially being in the east. And that doesn't give fair representation to those areas.
I do think you've got east and west, if you're going to consolidate them in one board, I could see that as long as the representation ends up equal. However, that doesn't mean something in the west that is opposed that I might, if I were on there, I might vote against it. Who knows? I mean, you can't prejudge how that would go, but just as a practical matter, I don't know how the appointments don't seem to be necessarily skewed towards population, but they could be. I could see where the commissioners say, well, I'm going to appoint more from the west because they've got 69,000 acres and we've got a little more population over here. I guess they've got more land. So the reality of it is it's really more about land than it is people. So, they've got a huge, so I mean, it would be logical to do that. So the only concern or a significant concern that I have when you consolidate these things is if you're diluting the local voices of people that live in the area. I've seen this time and time again at city councils where there's very, very strong opposition to something for good reason. The council person of that area votes no and everybody else votes yes. And those folks, as I've always told people that protest zoning, if you really want to do a job, you've got to go to the whole city and make the whole city opposed to it, which is impossible. Or if, on the other hand, if it's highly supported, the same thing applies. So I guess my only comment is my concerns would be if it's going to be approved, will the makeup of the board really look at mitigation? To me, mitigation is far more important than a lot of other things because a lot of these things get approved. We know of things that we voted to recommend denial, go to the county commission. They feel it's better for the county for whatever reason and they approve it. But I would much rather, spend time on most of these rather, and really look hard at mitigation. And I was hoping, in the new zoning code, et cetera, there'd be a great deal of emphasis on requiring developers to mitigate perceived damages, et cetera. So all that aside, my only concern here would be, will the local voices that may be in the east side that have the ear of everybody on this board have the same ear, sort of one man or one woman vote, one man, one vote is it equalized in some rational way? And I don't know how, I mean, on one side you've got acreage, one side you've got population. I could make the argument that acreage is more important than population, but population, So I don't know how to say anything from my perspective other than I would hope that however this sets up, if they decide to go in this direction, that we have equal representation from both sides so that you can get a proper argument and proper number of people representing whichever side it may be to talk about mitigation, to make sure the local voices are heard adequately and they don't get overwhelmed simply because they have a minority position on the board. And I know we're only a recommending body, I know that, but that's part of the process. So that would be one concern that I would want from me to the board would be, hey, we really need to look hard. If the chair has the right to appoint people, we ought to end up with equal votes, even if you have an odd number, at least equal votes on both sides and maybe the one that can break the tie, maybe that's the one the chair appoints, but I don't, you can't, no, there's no perfect way to do this. But Mr. Chairman, that's really all I have, those three thoughts.
And just Ken, I would mirror your comments on that. That's why I kind of like the 4 from Julie, 4 from, or 4 from 3, 4 from 6, give the chair a deciding vote. That way you have more clear representation there and that the chairman's position either comes from 6 or 3 on his call, but that way at least get majority representation there. The other comment that I would like to encourage as we're going through this process is I'm not saying every meeting, but if we know there's a controversial application, it would be great to get into the community and use like the elementary school, and the technology that they have, or if there's an item in the west, have the meeting over in that west area to encourage more community input. I think when you see the consolidation, you know, the first knee-jerk reaction is we're just trying to silence the residents that live there and we don't want their input and we're just consolidating and everyone in the west is going to take care of decisions for Stillwell in the east, you know, or the Spring Hill area. And we know that's not the purpose, but that's sort of that reaction you get. And to mitigate that is let's get the couple meetings or certain meetings into the community where the residents are so we can encourage that input versus having folks drive here for that. And then the third point I wanted to make before I ask Fred and Scott here, what's the situation then in doing this with the appeals board? Is there any change with the zoning appeals board?
Sean Penley, County Planning Staff, there is no change recommended for the Board of Zoning Appeals. That would stay the same.
And that board does all appeals for all the unincorporated.
Any appeals, and that's appointed, they are appointed by the board. I don't remember the exact process, but they go through the same application process. They all have to apply, all members apply, and the board appoints the BZA. That's correct, and that would stay the same. There's no changes proposed for that.
Okay, thank you. Fred?
Fred Winger, when will the 6 districts be reallocated? Is that a 10-year?
It's a very good question,
They just
Commissioner.
changed the boundaries.
They just revised them just a few months ago. I don't know if it's a set schedule every 10 years, for example. I think they've been trying to do them in roughly every 5 years or so.
So they were just recently done.
They just recently did a revision, and they'll look, and other major events may cause that for redistricting as well, such as population changes, or, you know, for example, like another large annexation or something like that, so.
So the expectation wouldn't be that either district would change dramatically.
In
Based
my
on
opinion,
history.
Commissioner, I would doubt it. I think the one event that would really significantly affected everything would be the Sunflower annexation. I think that's probably it was so large.
Yeah.
And they've changed the annexation laws, since the last 7 or 8 years. So it's much more difficult in terms of annexation. You have to be much more strategic about that. So I think those days of, losing large amounts of acres for annexations, it's very difficult to do. It's not that it's impossible, but I just think it's fairly difficult.
I would also support the idea of 4 from the 3rd and 4 from the 6th. I think it's representation of who we voted for. Could you go back to the makeup of the planning commission? I had a question there.
I'll pull up that slide real quick. So the planning commission makeup essentially would remain the same, with the exception of it's still we're proposing 12 members, and then currently you have 3 members from the 6th district, 3 members from the 3rd district. So that would be, so in other words, it would still be the same 6 members from the zoning board. It's just a matter of.
So there wouldn't be any changes to the planning commission?
That would be
Okay.
it, just in terms of
I'm just curious why the 1st and the 4th and the 2nd, the 5th, like, why do they get a nominee to the planning when it's all?
Sean Penley, Planning Staff. This was, so this is both the current and proposed. There's no change recommended Planning Commission. In 2023, when we did the last reorganization for all the boards, including the consolidation of the Northwest and Southeast, or Northwest and Southwest zoning boards, and renaming the Southeast to the East Board. As part of that, they also changed the composition of the boards. One change to the Planning Commission was that they had every representative of the Board of County Commissioners had at least one nominee. That was not the way it was before. It all came, I think, from the district commissioner and the chair. They wanted to split it up so that all the board members had a nominee. Now, our planning commission has, by state statute, 3 members have to be from incorporated areas within cities, and 9 shall be from unincorporated. That stays the same. That's why they broke that up. I believe it was this one nominee from a city, one nominee from a unincorporated. That was all done as part of that effort to have every commissioner had an opportunity to have a nominee. but they still had to follow the state statutes in the unincorporated and incorporated areas. But this was a big effort in 2023. That was one of the emphasis, and the board basically wanted that change. And so that's how they came about this. So we're not proposing any change to this other than instead of calling it one board member from the West zoning board and one board member from the East zoning board, it's just one each from the new consolidated zoning board. So that stays the same. So there is no proposed change to this planning commission composition.
Thanks for that clarification.
Anything else?
Maybe,
Any-
maybe our chair could nominate one of us to be on the Overland Park Planning Commission.
Yeah, that's
Talk
right.
about a group that needs help.
But as Rod Richards, that raises a question and make sure I understand it. So, and just I'm curious as to what the thinking behind it was. On the first and fourth districts, they get one nominee each from a city, and the chair gets one nominee from the city. So we've got basically three nominees from the city, right? But those cities obviously do their own planning. You know, I mean, this planning
That's my.
commission would do nothing for those cities, right? I mean, there's nothing that this planning commission would do would have any effect on
That
those
is
cities.
correct.
Correct. Yeah, they're representing the unincorporated area, but they're residents of the cities, representing the change for the overall county effort.
Right.
And that's by state statute. That's something that it's interesting that the statutes provided for that. That I think that was because they wanted to make sure that there was a city representative looking at future growth areas, because someday a lot of these areas in the unincorporated will be within cities and looking out for future growth. I think that was the intent of that. But this still follows those state statutes for the 3 residents from the city, 9 from the unincorporated.
Okay, so this is statutorily mandated, right?
Correct.
Okay, because you could make the argument that why would you have somebody from the city that has no authority? I mean, the city has no authority in the area. All right.
That's why the planning commission is a legislative body in effect. It's the policy and regulations change. That's why they don't consider the land use. And that's another reason why the county statutes are set up that way for the zoning board, separate from the planning, advisory board. It's separate because the zoning boards are considering, you're right, they're considering the land use applications that actually affect the unincorporated area. That's why there's no city representatives on the zoning boards. It's just all unincorporated. Planning, we're looking at legislative action, more big picture policy issues.
Thank you.
Scott, any comments?
Scott, no, you guys have covered everything. The only 2 questions I had were, one, the distribution of, and the 3 appointed by the chair. And then actually, as this came up, the question about the city representative. And I think we've covered those, so that's it for me.
All right. Thank you,
Appreciate
Jay.
those comments. Thank you very much.
So from a recommendation perspective, how's that process work?
In terms of bringing something back before the board, we will, and obviously all of your comments this evening are part of that record as well. We're also going before the West Consolidated Zoning Board as well as the Planning Commission. That those comments will have a report out. I assume probably the second meeting in January, but that we'll have that report out before obviously the reorganization.
This is kind of again, where did the recommendation generate or initiate to do a consolidation of the 2 zoning boards?
Where did it come from?
Yeah, was it from the consultants? Was it from
It-
your office and staff, or where
Well-
did it initiate?
Staff has talked about it. The legal team, I wouldn't say it's not one particular area. It's just been something that has been discussed. Actually, we had kind of initial discussions about it back in 2023 even. I mean, it's one of those things that has always been revisited from time to time. So I don't think it's any one particular body or entity. I know staff has talked about it for quite some time. Then we did some additional research on the issue with the statute about having a combined planning and zoning. And so, but it's been discussed for quite a while.
No.
Mr. Chairman, Rod Richardson, yeah, I think the way you could underscore what I'm hearing from this board to the county commissioners is, the concern that the consolidated board not be weighted one way or the other, that it be equal, and perhaps as chairman has suggested, the chair has 2 votes or a tie-breaking vote if that came up or what, however that might be done. But I go back to the old, the old saw about all zoning is local, which is true. All zoning primarily affects a very small area. That's why the state says in, counties, it's people within 1,000 feet or cities in a lesser dimension. It only affects those people. So those people are directly and sometimes dramatically affected. And my concern is that those are the folks that are very often asked to basically accept significant, significant dissatisfaction with noise, lights, everything else that inevitably comes along. Because the majority of the decision makers aren't from that area and aren't nearly as responsive to those folks' concerns, which underscores that's just a fact of life, So it underscores why I really believe that the one thing the zoning code ought to really take a hard look at is the requirements where there are those problems. They are well documented. There's noise, there's light, there's traffic, et cetera, that the burden be placed on the applicant is like, we'll approve this, but you've got to come to us with a plan that shows how you have taken reasonable action that will in fact mitigate those negative consequences, because we really don't have a very robust system for doing that under this code or even in the cities. But that's where that I've seen the problem. All these folks that come and they try to get commissioners or city councils to listen to them about the problems they're going to face, some of which never materialize, but many of which do. And it's having been on both sides of that issue. Oftentimes there are many, many things that developers could do to mitigate those negative consequences, but they're never asked to do so. And that's just something to think about as you're going forward with all this.
Thank you for the comments.
And I think too, when we start looking at, I think it does come down to representation to make sure that the residents that are living in these areas don't feel like they're losing that representation. Because the folks that say Julie appoints or nominates and gets appointed, we can easily change what we want by not electing Julie again, or vice versa. And I think potentially another way to keep that maybe would be the chair. If the chair is from the west, the vice chair or the co-chair should be from the east to help, make sure that those representations are kind of equal and feel good about them. Yeah. Any final comments before we adjourn?
Thank you for the input. I really appreciate that.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, one last announcement. I'm sorry, Sean Penley, planning stuff. I did want to announce, we do still have another meeting scheduled for the East Zoning Board. Whatever action may happen with this, will provide an update to the board in January, and there wouldn't be action for at least another couple months, but we do have a scheduled meeting for January 7th. That meeting, we actually have 4 applications scheduled for that meeting, so a fairly busy agenda. There are 2 rezonings and preliminary plats with new residential subdivisions, 1 final plat for a replat of 2 lots, and 1 conditional use permit application. So pretty busy agenda for that meeting. So we just want to give a heads up about that meeting scheduled. Public notice will be going out soon for those. And staff is currently working on those applications. So we just wanted to give you a heads up for that next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Mr. Chair, one last item under new business or other business. I wanted to announce that we did lose a zoning board member, Dennis Bolin, who was appointed to this board, but didn't have a chance to serve on the East zoning board. Dennis passed away on October 26th, just a few weeks ago. He was a longtime zoning board member. I think many of you knew him. He was on the Southeast Consolidated Zoning Board. He was part of the South Central Zoning Board. He was also on the Planning Commission. So he's very active in the unincorporated area for a long time. So we're very sorry of his passing. There's a card that's up at the dais there if you all would like to sign that. But certainly our thoughts are with his family this evening.
Thank you.
And I have the card. We've all signed it.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Fred Wingert, second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your.